Absolutely will not do anymore is I will not leave my house. I need to do my morning meditation. Even if it's 5 minutes. No, literally, I know it sounds hokey. It is life changing because the phone would ring and what teacher called out and you're running out of the house. You forgot you packed your lunch. You didn't get your it's life changing. Hey guys, it's Erica Sakosho here with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I'm so excited you tuned in today. I have a very dear friend of mine on our show, Julie Anderson, aka the Brain Lady. Or I should say, I was a co-author in the book that she spearheaded we talk about a little bit on our show, Women Excelling Everywhere. So welcome to the show, Julie.
Oh, thank you for having me here. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So tell folks just a little bit about your background.
Okay, I am known as the Brain Lady or Brain Lady Julie. I kind of got that term because, quite frankly, I'm a little bit of a brain geek. Was born and raised in Northern California. I am the proud parent of 3 grown children, all boys. They are now in their 30s, so they are grown and living their own magnificent life. And I have 4 sisters, all girls. So I had boys, but all sisters. And in my late 20s, I just started studying and fell in love with the brain and went down a brain rabbit hole that has brought me to where I'm at now. So that's the capsule. You can ask me if you want more details.
Sure. Okay. So that's the reason I asked you on this show, because I wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness and emotional intelligence when it comes to leadership and early childhood education. So I thought today we could dive into the connection between mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and leadership, and how mindfulness can help you regulate your emotions, empathize with others, and inspire trust and loyalty among your team. So I really thought that this was something important to talk about on the show. We talk about a lot of the business mechanics of it, but you need the personality and the skill set to implement those business mechanics, especially in a leadership role, right? You can't be like bull and try to lead everybody by the horn, but you also can't be wishy-washy like a mop. So it's kind of that culmination of the two. So I thought we could just dig a little bit deeper into the brain development and the thinking behind it and how it all works. So that's how I'm called to it. Before we do that, I love to give shout outs to my listeners. I am so grateful, Julia. She's a fellow podcaster. I cannot tell you how amazing our listeners are. Our show has tripled in listeners in less than 30 days. Like, it's insane. So I want to give a shout out to our listeners in Michigan, Arizona, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Rhode Island, California, New York. There's so many of you. We thank you. We are humbly grateful. And then to Miss Aja, thank you so much for supporting our show. And Megan Gallagher, who were our very first 2 official sponsors or membership folks in our show. So if you want to support our podcast and you love our content, please click the link below. There is an option that's as low as $3 a month to support our podcast that help us continue to produce wonderful, amazing free content to all of you. So that's my housekeeping for the day. So thank you for staying with us. So Julie, let's get into it. Can we talk a little bit about what are some common challenging behaviors in children? Why may they occur, and how do folks that are in the field help with empathy and be supportive of their staff? Because kids are having a lot of challenges now, and they need that leadership that can help not only the children but the teachers cope through the day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. So we all know that there's a couple of things at play here. One is kids aren't playing with a full deck. Like, let's just face it. They are where they're at. They're in development. They're learning, especially in early childhood, they're learning their place in the world, right? So they have to, through the experience of day-to-day life, they kind of figure out the social things that they need to figure out to be and to grow. And sadly, for the world as a whole, the last 5 years have been horrible, right? And everybody's still there's just this the entire mindset of individuals has shifted so much in the last 3 years,
Yes.
dramatically. And the thing for our little kids is they've experienced too, but they have no way to articulate it. They have no way to explain their feelings. They have no way to understand what is happening. They just don't have the brain power for that yet. That portion of the brain isn't completely developed. It hasn't even begun really
Yeah.
deeply to develop when you're talking early childhood. So for our little kids, what that results in is behavioral issues because they can't articulate and because they don't really understand what's going on. They don't know why their life, their schedule, their normalcy was so upset. And then they watch the emotional upsets of their parents and all the adults, and the adults are supposed to have it all together. And we didn't know what the blank was going on.
Yeah.
So in these little brains, they just couldn't process it. So we see that coming out in those challenging behaviors.
Yeah.
Whether it's, temper tantrums or hitting or biting or or isolation. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we begin to see. That's what's behind it.
Yeah. So I think that's why having strong leadership, because the teachers need your help. So having strong leadership really is important. And it makes me think about asking the question like mindfulness practice. How can mindfulness practice benefit early childhood leaders in the decision-making process?
I am such a huge advocate of mindfulness practice. There's just like I have not yet to find anything that it doesn't help with. Because when you do the mindfulness practice and when you really do that on a day-to-day basis and you incorporate it into your life, then you have so much more control over your higher thinking.
Yeah.
Right. You can access that so much like on a dime. Whereas if you're not practicing that on a regular basis, then the emotion brain takes over.
Yeah.
And when the emotion,
Go ahead, Julie. Sorry.
I was just going to say, when that emotion brain takes over, now you've got 2 kids in the classroom, right?
Yeah. It brings me back to when I went to Arizona, and I really learned so much about mindfulness and how to use it myself in my own life as a multi-location childcare owner. It was life-changing for me. And it not only was it life-changing for me, it was life-changing for the people around me. Because when I came back, I was different. And I'm still different. And it's hard for them because it was so used to me being a certain way. And now I feel like I am very grateful for the things in my life, but I also have put up some boundaries and said, you know what, my self-care is really important, because for me to be able to continue to give and give and give, I need to replenish. And so I think that that's something that's really important when we think about mindfulness. And it doesn't take a lot of time, and you don't have to change your whole life. Like I felt like this morning, one of the things I absolutely will not do anymore is I will not leave my house. I need to do my morning meditation. Even if it's 5 minutes. No, literally, I know it sounds hokey. It is life changing, because the phone would ring and what teacher called out and you're running out of the house. You forgot to get back to work to get you up. But it's life changing. And if it's life changing for someone like me who's 53 and very set in my ways, just this little bit to teach someone who's only been on the earth 3 years, 5 years is impactful. And then even the younger generation, if you've only been a director a couple of years, this practice really can help you during stressful times, right? So if somebody like an old dog like me can learn the new trick, you can too, listeners out there. I think, and it's a practice, right? It is a practice. It's hard to clear your mind, right? I had a teacher we were just talking about the other day, and she's like, "Oh, I tried it. It didn't work. I tried meditation. It didn't work. It's so hard. All these things kept coming to my head." I'm like, that's why it's a practice, because it's hard, right? Your brain's a muscle. It's hard to clear your mind and just focus on the one thing. And but it's so beneficial. So beneficial.
Very much so. And the key is as you're, and you don't, some people think that you have to do the completely clear your mind, wipe it out, you just go into this zone state. Mindfulness meditation does not have to go to that, right? You can get really good results from harnessing and hyper focusing your thoughts, right? So when you do this and you become, when you're doing this, you are becoming 100% in the now, 100% present. And that's the key, because you're training your brain to do that in an instant. So for me, my mornings are that very, just feet on the ground, feeling every sensation in my body, opening my eyes, looking at the colors of the leaves. Are they moving? The wind? What's the temperature of the skin? Becoming 100% present. What that does is it so activates the higher regions of your brain. And you learn to do it so quickly that now, when a stressful moment hits you in the face in the middle of the day, the screaming child, the unhappy parent, the teacher that just lost it, and is crying, now you can just, in one breath, literally in one breath, in, out through your nose, because that activates the brain. Now your brain knows that signal. You've trained it that signal because you're doing the mindfulness practice every day, and it instantly is in a higher thinking.
Yeah.
So now you're controlling the narrative as opposed to letting that situation control you.
And it's funny how you say that too, because even with the brain, so there's this eucalyptus spray that I purchased off my niece. Well, it's a spa and I love it. And anytime I smell it, I instantly go, oh my God, it just takes me to a happy place. I have a small bottle of it in my office. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, I need a minute. And again, it sounds so silly, but I have trained my brain. As soon as I smell that, I am instantly calmer. Literally, instantly, okay, you got this, right? So yeah, I think it's certainly very important. So let's think about how mindfulness and leadership contributes to creating a positive and nurturing environment for young children and the staff in your care.
Again, it's because it engages the higher portions of your brain. It keeps your brain out of the first thing that your brain does when it's in stress is it goes, the amygdala, that lower region, the limbic system, the lower subconscious region of the brain, it kicks in and it takes over, right? And when that happens, it literally sucks the oxygen out of out of the thinking, out of your cerebrum. So you're moving now on emotion and on action. You're moving everything coming out of your mouth, every physical action you're doing, it's all based on that stress response. So when you take that control back over, when you've trained your brain to be able to snap into the present with just a breath, now you're controlling the emotion instead of allowing the emotion to control you. Because if you get 5 emotional people in a room, it's a problem.
Yeah. So I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, Julie, talk about the effects of, as the leader, the effects of your emotions on your team, and how does that affect the culture in your program? So talk a little bit about that in your experience.
Yeah, it totally, it calms, it will calm the entire situation. It literally will shift the energy in the room. Like, we've all had that experience, and I'm not trying to get it metaphysical, but we are energetic beings. Our brain fires on electrical impulses.
Mm-hmm.
Our heart beats based on an electrical impulse, right? So we respond to energy. And everyone has had that experience where they've walked into a room and they can feel it.
Yeah. I mean, I just walked into.
Yeah, they're like, what's going
Yeah.
here? And they're like, I got to get out of this place. It's just like, it's like the air is so thick. So when you are the leader, the individuals in the room with you, the individuals in the job with you, they expect you to lead. That's your position. That's what they look to you as. So when you come in with that calm, you are controlling the energy in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and you are bringing it down. And when we were speaking before we went live about the emotional intelligence piece. So when you combine those two and you use that higher thinking, then you are controlling and bringing everything down, and they're going to mirror you. The brain actually has mirror neurons in it, right? This is why if I yawn, you probably yawn, or vice versa, right? Or if I smile to you, yeah. If I smile at you, you're going to smile back. It's because our brain has mirror neurons that give us the ability to be empathetic and to connect with human beings. So when you are the one in charge and you exhibit that calm behavior, their brains are literally going to start to mirror yours.
I've seen that. I've seen it live. And I've seen both sides. I've seen somebody who's come in and can calm the place very quickly. And I've seen someone who can walk in and build it, and within 20 minutes, everybody is, like you said, is in walking in peace suit, right? So we talked about the importance. Can you please help us, to our listeners out there, give us some effective strategies that we can use to incorporate mindfulness in our day-to-day lives?
So, as individuals, because we can talk about how you do with teams later, but as individuals, I always tell people literally your brain is in the most impressionable state in between sleep and alpha waves, right? In between sleep and wide awake. And it's called the theta, right? It's this theta field. And it's when your brain is the most impressionable to outside input. That is one of the reasons why I tell people do not touch your phone for the first 20 to 30 minutes of the day. Even, I mean, if you're using it as an alarm, buy a stinking alarm somewhere else. You can get them for $2, right?
Yeah.
At the dollar store. Because what happens is the second you look at it and you see those
The call outs.
oh,
Every
exactly.
character on here is living this day-to-day nightmare. Yeah, well, your
Exactly.
phone is pinging at 3 in the morning, waking you up from sleep because someone's calling out.
Yeah, turn the notifications off,
Yeah.
right? The world, and I always tell people, unless you are an ER physician that is on call,
Correct.
nobody is going to die
Yeah.
if you don't answer your phone for the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you take that time instead to leisurely allow your brain and your body to come to that higher waking position. You get your coffee, you get your tea, you sit and you relax and you do your mindfulness practice right then and there. First thing out the gate.
Yeah.
Now, if you have kids and you're trying to rush them off to school and you're like, my mornings are always
Wake up earlier.
Exactly. 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Get up 15 minutes earlier. Give yourself the best gift you can give yourself.
Yeah.
And get up 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah. I remember speaking with one of my friends who's a counselor, and her name is Jen. And she said to me, you know what, Erica, your biggest problem, you're so incredible. She goes, your biggest problem is you just don't know how to just be. She's like, just be. It's not, that's really impactful. She said that to me a really long time ago, and I didn't really get it until I went away. Yeah, like I was like, wow, this is what she meant. Because I had never really unplugged the way I unplugged a few months ago. And I highly recommend it. So, you said team. So talk about teams. How can you practice mindfulness with your team? Some strategies there.
Yeah. So the first key is to, emulate, give them a good example to follow, right? Talk about it, share your experiences, share the calmness that it gives you, share the clarity that it gives you. Because I might interject too, back up just a minute, is that you bookend your day that way. So you wake up, but you also have at the evening when your brain is winding down, it slides back through that very impressionable point. So that's when you do 5 to 10 minutes in the evening, and you just do that same walk through, become your body, how you feel, the temperature, all that kind of stuff. And then that's when gratitude is so important. you always want to end your day in a positive mind. So you always want that last thing that you're really thinking about to be positive. And the best way to do that is to reflect on your top 3 great things that you had or experienced during the day. Because if you go to bed stressed out over what you got to do tomorrow, you're going to wake up stressed out.
Yeah. That it just gave me an aha moment as well. So, as directors or owners, we typically get like nothing, I don't want to say nothing but complaints, but typically it's, oh, I need this or that or whatever, right? But an aha moment when you just said ending your day positively, at the end of the day before you leave, maybe you visit each classroom and you ask the teacher, tell me one good thing that happened today. Tell me one good thing, right? Because you can't be every day, it can't be negative, negative. Tell me one good thing, right? She was on her phone. She did this one, that. Tell me one good thing that happened in your classroom today. One kid who hit a milestone, one coworker who helped you without asking, one, admin that gave you an extra 15 minutes because they recognized without you asking you needed a little extra support, right? Tell me one good thing, right? And if you go around and collect that, that's how you're leaving your building, right? With all of that, as you said, positive stuff, right? Because we don't tend to do that. We tend to go to our desk at the end. Well, I'm going to speak for myself. And I've been doing it a long time, so I'm probably not alone. The end of the day, when everybody leaves, is when I sit at my desk and go, oh, and then I'm making my list of what's to do tomorrow, what fires you're going to put out, and, who's going to have, their day off requests, and now you got to figure out how you're going to fill that, and, the 14 subs you have on the list are not available. So yeah, that was an aha moment. So thank you for sharing that, Julie, because I never thought of doing that, but I'm going to do that tomorrow. And just like, yeah, can y'all tell me one good thing that happened today?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that leads perfectly into the last question then that you asked is how can leaders do this with their teams, right? How can they? So when you, again, you're setting the example. So when you as the leader do this at the end of every day, you are forcing those teachers to think about it. You are forcing those teachers to become consciously aware of the positive instead of stressed out over the negative. So it becomes almost a teaching moment that they don't even realize they're having.
Yeah.
Right. And that's beautiful. And you can even then take it one step further by saying, okay, we're going to implement mindfulness practice during the day. And this is excellent for the children too. It is so like the kids, Goldie Hawn, who everybody knows, the actress Goldie Hawn, she has a wonderful institute that she has started, and she's bringing mindfulness meditation into schools. That's what her foundation does. And she has a lot of data on how positive that is. So you can actually teach your teachers how to implement this in the classroom and say, okay, we're going to do 1 minute. And you have to start off very slow. And obviously, depending on the age of the children, maybe if it's the younger children, maybe it's when they're taking their little nappy time or whatever, or they're laying down in their rest time, that's when the teacher, instead of going, okay, everything's quiet, I'm going to do some paperwork. That's when the teacher goes, okay, I'm going to do my mindfulness for a couple minutes. Right. And do that, because then that allows their brain to reset and recharge the same.
Yeah.
Right. So you can actually incorporate it into the day-to-day activity.
Yeah. And I would say, another place that you could do that is during your gross motor activity, right? A lot of teachers do yoga with their children. So that's a great place where you can add a little bit more, right? At talking about what mindfulness is, talking about being grateful. Even talking with the kids about what they're grateful for. Tell me, I'm grateful my mom made me a sandwich today. Like, talking to children about being grateful and talking about being aware of our surroundings. And, we live in New England here, and the birds, it's spring here. I love, and it's so funny, I come out now of my house and I hear the birds chirping, and I always stop and I smile. It brings a smile, like the littlest joy, but it brings a smile to my face, like, oh, it's going to be a beautiful day. We don't get a lot of sunshine and birds chirping. Well, we do, but not for long periods of time. So when it happens, it's like, oh, we get really happy about it. So
they actually just released a really good study on, and I think it's the National Institute on brain science or neuroscience or whatever, that they just released a new study that showed even more benefits of nature, just listening to nature sounds, forest sounds, water,
Mm,
and birds.
yeah.
Listening to that actually increases your cognitive ability and your cognitive functioning.
Oh,
So that's one of the reasons why you love it so much.
that makes sense. And so my teacher brain went, right, is when you are doing other types of activities, maybe when you have centers open or you can play that in the background, at a level that doesn't disrupt what you're going on. But again, if it helps stimulate the neurons in the brain, as you said there, it stimulates your brain activity. What a great way to combine that with what you're using. We have these really cool stuffed animals that we bought at Ace Hardware, of all places, which I don't know why they had them, but they had these stuffed animals that were birds. And they had all different kinds of birds. And when you squeeze the middle, it made the chirp. It was from the Audubon Society. It made the sound of the bird. And we must have had a basket of like 35 of them. And the kids all started to recognize the different bird calls. But they really did enjoy it they would always ask me to bring that basket out at circle time. So the children are just also equally, gravitate towards nature. So we talked about the importance, we talked about some strategies. Let's talk about what are some potential challenges or barriers that early childhood leaders may face when implementing mindfulness practices and how can they overcome them?
Well, I think the first one is the pushback, right? It's there's for one thing, because there's been so much misunderstanding over the years of just what mindfulness meditation is, and it's always had this woo woo, for lack of a better term, label put on it. There wasn't a good understanding, and that's one of the reasons why love of the impact of it, not a good understanding of the how powerful it is. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the neuroscience piece, right? Because we can actually look at brains functioning, scan the brains functioning in meditative states and in doing mindfulness meditation. It's fascinating. But so some of those challenges are that pushback, the pushback that the leaders or that the teachers themselves may have, right? The teacher may say, "Oh, I don't want to do this one more thing to add to my list," right? One more thing. Uh, so education is always the first thing, right? Being able to, teachers are smart. So if the leaders are giving them a report and saying, "Hey, here's a report, here's a latest finding, here's what Society on Neuroscience said, or here's what," right? So that they can actually go, okay, there is some validity here. It's not it's not that woo woo. And it's the same thing in dealing with the parents. If parents give the teachers
Yeah, it's a great
pushback.
resource. It's also a great resource for the parents to see because parenting is hard, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the kids, it just takes, kids will follow in time, right? They have to learn it.
Yeah.
And
Practice.
so if they're getting, yeah, practice. If they're getting a little bit of pushback, then you're just starting with 30 seconds and you're bumping that to a minute and you're bumping that to 90 seconds. You keep your expectations realistic. You're saying, well, I can't make this, ADD child sit for 3 minutes, much less, or for
Yeah.
1 minute, much less 3 or 5 minutes. It takes patience on the adult's part to be able to just implement it slowly. And then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes a regular routine. And the kids wind up really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, and those are probably the children who need it most to figure out how to have that impulse control and how to pull it together when they feel like it's kind of all unraveling. Julie, this is always a fascinating conversation when we get together. I can't believe we're almost at the end of time. So, yeah, time goes so fast. I knew it was going to. As I said, it's always so wonderful to talk to you. I would say we've got maybe another three minutes. So, would you like to share any success stories or examples of how mindfulness and leadership has positively impacted someone you work with or one of your clients or yourself?
You know what? I'll share one that I just had today in
Okay.
dealing with a client. The aha moments that she had of one, the importance and the difference that it makes in the self-care. We don't think of mindfulness under self-care, right? We think of it, we don't look at it that way. We look at it at as this, almost like an exercise, like, okay, it's the same as doing an elliptical or whatever. But just the aha moment and the weight off her shoulders when she started to do it, when she learned how to do it, right? The success that that has given just within her personal range. And then there's when I was reading a study and when I was doing the neuroscience of leadership course a few years back, where the most successful leaders that have become the most financially successful leaders are leaders that implement on a daily basis, that twice a day, morning and evening mindfulness practice. So yeah, so it's tangible. It's financially tangible, it's physically tangible, the changes in your body. It works, it's powerful.
Yeah, I believe that. So thank you so much. So I want to wrap up just a couple things. One, here's my ahas in our 22 minutes. Staff newsletters. So if you don't feel like your folks are going to read a report, you can intertwine that information into your staff newsletters, right? You want to make this part of your culture, right? You have to take care of yourself before your team is going, because they're going to follow you. Because if you're a leader, right? It's not really a title. If you're a leader, then lead your team to take care of themselves and take care of the children in their care. I think another place that you could do is when you're putting together your staff evaluations, maybe make that also part of a priority, right? Where we want to do all the check boxes and did you do this? Did you do that? Did you keep your shelves clean? Did you take care of yourself? Did you make sure that you were doing mindfulness and that your stress level was down and that you were engaging with the children in a way that was positive and nurturing? So I think there's a place that you could add it. Again, as Julie said, leading by example and adding nature to your classroom, both your inside classroom, outside classroom, right? Get out as much as you can. Children love nature. It helps with the brain. So I love Julie. We'll probably have her on our show again. Let us know how you love Julie as well. You can catch her on her own podcast, Women Excelling Everywhere. Do you have more than one podcast, or is that the podcast?
I do. I have a second one called Brain Lady Speaks. So Women Excelling Everywhere, more specifically women issues. Brain Lady Speaks, the general neuroscience, neuropsychology.
Perfect. We're going to put Julie's links down below. So if you want to check out her podcast, I highly recommend it. She's a wonderful lady and certainly knows what she's talking about. For those of you who are tuned in today, we appreciate you so much. Again, if you'd like to support our channel, we really, really appreciate it. We want to keep bringing the best of the best to you, and we're working really hard to do that. We're also getting out to conferences out the country, which is so exciting. I'm very passionate about it. I want to meet all of you. We are going to the Born to Teach conference in July, the beginning of July, the week of 4th of July in Texas. So if you are a Texas listener, be sure to go to that conference. And if you do, stop by the Childcare Director's Chair booth. If you've never been on our YouTube channel, please visit our YouTube channel. If you love the content, subscribe. If you don't love the content, let me know. Inbox me. I promise I'll answer. So that's it for today's episode of Childcare Director's Chair. I'm your host, Erin Viscocio. As always, thank you for tuning in. Bye. Have a great day.